We're going to find out why it's not social media. Then we're going to learn how to create digital influence with Crystal de Meyer from Belgium. Then there's a couple of kind of spotlights today as well. Lucy Cook will talk about going viral. And Pete Fine is going to describe to us how his neighbours helped save his ass in a flood in a very quick-fire presentation. UK Uncut are here, and they're going to talk to us about how they went from a conversation in a pub to a national movement in the space of about 3 months using social media, and they will demonstrate how they operate in a very interactive way. And then we'll have a workshop on cults with Douglas Atkin. So Douglas is going to start with a keynote about why social media is a misnomer. And in the afternoon we'll be learning how to turn ourselves, our projects, our companies into a cult. It's essentially about community. So I hope you're able to stick with us for the whole day, because it's action-packed and fast-paced, and I know it's Sunday and everyone's tired, but we're going to get you moving around as well. And there's not many opportunities for toilet breaks, cigarettes and coffees, so you might have to grab them on the run. There will be limited opportunities. But first of all, I'd like to introduce Douglas Atkin.
Hi. So I'm just going to do a quick romp. In fact, it's a bit of a rant about social media. It's something that's been bothering me for a couple of years. I should just give you perhaps a little bit of background about where I'm coming from this point of view. So for about 4 years ago, I worked at Meetup. I was a partner of Meetup and Chief Officer of Community for 2 years, and then left that and helped start a consultancy called Purpose, which uses online tools to create online movements and online organising for social causes. And I'll be talking about that a bit later too, how you can use these tools to mobilise millions of people to take actions to change things. We just launched All Out. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's the first global gay rights movement. We launched that in February and helped stop the Kill the Gays bill in Uganda. And then what I'm doing right now is I've just launched this week actually the New York Tech Meetup, a new social platform called Yakit, which enables you to use live and recorded video to post and share opinions. So I'm coming from a kind of couple of perspectives of what's called social media. So it's not social media, god damn it. When people talk about these kinds of things, they nearly always describe them as social media. Now, the people who build these things don't call it social media. They never call it social media. They call it something else entirely. They'll call it a social platform or a social technology or whatever else. Now, you may say to yourself, well, who cares? I mean, that's just a small semantic difference. But I really don't think it is, because if you call it social media, you're probably going to think of it as social media. And if you're just thinking of it as another media, you're thinking of it as just another channel like TV or print or radio or film. And that's a dangerous thing, because it's not another channel. On these platforms, people are generally having their quite profound social needs being satisfied. And if you treat it as just another platform, just another channel, you'll probably screw it up. Whatever your activity is going to be, you probably will not achieve your goals if you treat it as simply another channel. You have to recognize the important fact that social needs are being met on these social platforms. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. So I'm actually going to talk about Meetup for a second. Does everyone know what Meetup is? Hands up. Who knows what Meetup is? Okay, not that many. So Meetup was one of the first social platforms. It's a platform where you can meet online, find people of similar interests, passions, and causes, and form groups around those passions and causes or interests and meet up face to face. So it basically does a very old thing in a new way, which is form community around passions and interests and causes. So like one of the biggest categories is stay-at-home mum meetups. Women going, or men going crazy, bringing up their kids, want to meet others and have play groups, etc. But there's everything, as I'll show you, there's all kinds of passions and interests there. So, Meetups are basically real groups satisfying real needs in real time. So let me give you an example of that. This is the Toronto Adult ADD Support Group with 500 members. They've had 107 past meetups. This is a quote I just picked at random from one of the members. It was nice having another person with ADHD, ADD to validate me. It takes someone who knows what it's like to struggle each day to make you feel like you're not alone. Here's one from the UK. We have such a diversity of members from all backgrounds and professions, from plumbers to dentists to surgeons to television directors, car dealers to accountants. From this, if you're ever in need of advice about something, whether it's a blocked sink or the best second-hand car to buy or how to do a tax return, there is always someone in the group who can help you out, usually in exchange for no more than a beer or a smile. We've got a great community. This is a mums meetup group. About half of the mums in the group are military spouses and understand what I'm going through. It's a great support group, and whenever a group member has needed anything, I'm proud to say my members have come through. So I've just taken these at random, these comments which are posted after each meetup happens, that people say how they have found it. These are very common responses. So at Meetup, we are extremely aware of this. We are very, very conscious that we're actually doing quite a serious thing here, that people's real social needs are being met. So conscious, in fact, that we built it into our manifesto. One of the things I did when I was there was make sure that we had a clear manifesto. In fact, that's one of the little workshops we're going to be doing later, which is how to write a manifesto or an ideology for your organization, whether you're making a movie, or you're starting a movement, or you're creating a mums group, whatever it is. It's very, very important to have a very clear manifesto. So the heart of our manifesto at Meetup is we believe in the power of local self-organized groups to improve lives and change the world. Change the world in both my terms, so in groups people teach, share, cope, learn, cure, support and motivate. They belong, feel purpose, have meaning and become confident enough to be themselves. Here's some examples of that. So this is the Dallas Plano Spanish language meetup group. They've got 1,000 members and met 68 times in the past. We have a common interest to improve our spoken Spanish through practice and social interaction. New York City Black Professionals Meetup. They're all about making new friends and contacts and helping each other become successful entrepreneurs. This is one I talked about that I'm a member of in New York. The New York Tech Meetup has 18,000 members and has met 87 times. And actually this one has become the social nexus of technologists in Silicon Alley and is now rivaling Silicon Valley. It provides a very, very useful function for the whole industry. And it's also the power to change the world. Groups have a history of making history. In groups, people unite, activate, mobilize, advocate, agitate, lobby, endorse, create democracy, and change things. So here's a couple of examples of that. You've got the LA Fight Human Trafficking Meetup. Climate change, carbon-free DC, the New York Volunteer Network. I always like putting this up. Groups do things, they change things. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So, Meetup is a for-profit company. You know, we have VC investors, they want their investment back at some time probably, and we make a modest profit. But we're extremely conscious that we are a not just for profit company. And we're not alone in that. I would suggest that most of the social platforms that are around are populated by, certainly amongst the founders, by people who are somewhat idealistic and have a social mission in mind. I mean, obviously, sometimes that doesn't work out. Facebook often screws up, and I suggest they do that when they lose sight of that. But in general, really, if I was to characterize the industry, it's full of idealists who are about people power. And same at Meetup. We wrote a culture document, and this is an excerpt that kind of describes this. We're in this to change the world. We don't just do community because it's a good business. That means we will scrutinize every decision to ensure that we will make money only if we make more successful meetups. We're a company that believes the company of others can change lives or the world for the better. So the whole point here is, if there are very important social needs, I just gave you an example from Meetup, but of course it applies to other social platforms, very important social needs being met. If you treat it as just another channel, you're likely to simply be an exploiter. You won't do it right, I would suggest. The only way of actually working well with these tools is to actually become a social participant. That doesn't matter whether you're a brand or a movie or anything else for that matter. Your whole sort of approach to social platforms and social technologies is to think of yourself almost as one of the members playing in there in an authentic and legitimate way. So let me give you an example of that. So how can you be a social participant? In the marketing world, which is where I used to be many years ago, the whole sort of model of marketing and branding and whatnot is command and control. You do things and the consumer responds and jerks, in response to what you're doing. And you kind of yell and sell. The whole attitude has changed now. The whole approach has changed. And to deal with these social platforms, to deal with communities that are operating within them, the whole attitude should be one of support and nurture. And the way to do that is be useful. So these communities, these members, are unlikely to treat you with any credibility whatsoever unless your posture is one of, how can we help you? How can we support you? How can we make you achieve your goals? Once you do that, that's your passport into that community. They say, fine, come on in. Even if you're a brand. Let me give you an example of that. So early on, when we started, we had loads and loads of companies approaching us all the time wanting to get involved with meetup groups because they were very strong communities. So Huggies came along, which is a diaper company, and said, we want to get involved with mums meetup groups. And we said, sure. But they took the old approach. They treated it as just another media channel. And all they did was distribute some money off coupons from diapers. And A, they didn't get much take-up of that offer. And B, actually, they created alienation for the brand. People were saying, this is pathetic, so how are you helping me here? So they actually did themselves damage. So we worked with them and said, look, you've got to have a totally different attitude here. You've got to be useful. So then we worked with them and they put together a whole program so that the organizers of the meetups had really interesting content and things to do with their members that were kind of helped by Huggies. This is an example of one of them. They had June is Potty Training Awareness Month. But they produced DVDs on how to successfully train your kids to go to the potty. And so they did other things like that all the way through the whole program. And in the end, the meetup groups and the members loved Huggies and would recommend them. We did whole research on this and would recommend them to other people. So they went from yell and sell, command control, to support and nurture. American Express Open did the same thing for Chicago entrepreneurs, for all entrepreneur groups. And they were fantastic, actually. They had a business book author speaker program that they sent the business book authors all the way around to these meetups to talk. They ran seminars on how to manage cash flow and do marketing and all those things. And they were absolutely loved. And here's some of the responses you can get if you do it right, even if you're a brand, even if you're Microsoft. The one at the bottom is a good one. It's great that a local company who is sustained by hikers gives back and supports our hiking habit. Great people earning their business. So when you do it right, you can be really loved. When you do it wrong, you can be really hated because you're simply seen as an exploiter using them as another channel. So in summary, it's a platform or a social technology. It's not media. People are having their social needs met here, so recognize that and be a social participant through support and nurture. Otherwise, people will simply feel as if they're being used rather than you being useful to them and furthering their own goals. That's it. Thanks very much. Sorry about the rant. Are there any questions, by the way? We can have time for a couple of questions. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Threw it all out. Yeah. Are you?
Can I Christel de Meijer, I'm from Belgium, and as Doug, I'm working on digital influence, and I'm working actually how you can like motivate people, get people online, do things, take action in a certain model, and we call that digital influence. First of all, I would like to, of course, you know, like you're probably all producing documentaries or some sort of films or whatsoever. And what's really new now, these last 5-6 years, I think, is that people can comment on it. There are platforms where you can share your comments and so on. So that's very new, the 2.0 technology. And then also this results in time shifting as well. So consuming media is very different than 10 years ago, for example. You can watch it when you want, when it's convenient for you. So it's more user-centric than kind of a publisher-centric thing, you know. So that's a whole difference. I think very different for television now, and also for broadcasters. Sex lies and videotapes, blogs, social networks, and microblogging. Those are like the different kind of actions that you can take right now. And microblogging, I don't know if Douglas will go into that, but jacketing is kind of a new approach to do microblogging actually. And you can use all these materials to promote or to look for ideas, to look for people to work with you, to take actions in causes, social causes, marketing, whatever segments you're working in. You can use all these tools, but I think you have to kind of learn that social networks can disappear too. There are a few examples already of networks that are disappearing. And then the target audience, if you want to do something online, you really need to know your audience. I mean, you really need to know how to target them and how you're going to do that. You have to really think clearly about that. And I say clearly because it's not so easy to do. You know? So you need to find ways to kind of trigger and motivate people to do things. So there's some research going on now, not so long, a year or 2, 3, I think, that people are researching on social networks, and these are like 6 things that people attract to social networks. You know, they need to belong, the social pressure. Entertainment, of course, Facebook, a lot of entertainment is going on, although I think there's also kind of a fatigue in doing games on Facebook, so it's changing a little bit. Communication, of course, you can communicate with a lot of people all together. You send one message and you reach like 1,000 people maybe, depending on your connections. Information, commercial value if you want to, and self-expression. So I think Facebook is one of the major platforms that a lot of people change their lives. You know, it's becoming a daily routine to check in there. To use Foursquare is another example, I think. You check in Foursquare wherever you go. And you check on Facebook maybe in the morning or in the evening to check what your friends are doing or what are your connections are doing. And it's an excellent broadcasting model, I think. There are 2 barriers though, to technology. I mean, people from my generation, my friends, 50 plus or older, are not so likely to go on Facebook or other social networks because they find it difficult to use. So there's kind of a limit there, depending on the generation you're in. It will be easier accepted than in other younger generations. And younger generations use it very differently as well. So there's and you need to know that if you're working on your audience. And then, of course, the privacy issue, although I think we should get over the privacy issue. I mean, it's depending on you, what you want to talk about, what you want to post, so it's not really like you have to post stuff there. So we've been talking about a meetup and already, so you know what that is already now. It's one of my examples also. I use it a lot also to get people together and to meet face to face. It's a very good tool to organize yourself. People from the UK, I don't know how many people are here from the UK, probably quite a lot. Bebo disappeared kind of, you know, after the takeover with AOL. It kind of disappeared completely, I think, most probably because AOL didn't pay attention to the local aspect of the social network in Bebo. MySpace is on sale, so they fired a lot of people on MySpace. It's not so, the momentum is completely gone in MySpace. Facebook and LinkedIn, Facebook is still there, so we'll see how that will go on in a few years. It might change, but I think social networks will not completely disappear, but they might change in kind of different ways. LinkedIn, how many people are on LinkedIn? I'm using it quite a lot, yeah. So I don't know if you know that, but LinkedIn went public a few weeks ago. We'll see how that will go. But LinkedIn is really existing a long time. I use it a lot. It's completely professional, of course. It's a different kind of platform. Although I think LinkedIn now is really picking up on Facebook and has a lot of broadcasting opportunities now too. You can integrate your blogs and everything, so things are going good there too. The social glue, I think that's something Doug is also talking about, how communities kind of work, you know, and I think this is kind of an old study, but I think it's still kind of, you know, actual. There are not too many people who will participate. You really have to kind of trigger them to do that. You know, people are not automatically going to work online with you. And then the creators in itself, it's a very low percentage. So if you look at Facebook and they say like 2/3 of the world population is on Facebook, well, you know, maybe 10% is active on that. So you need to consider that too if you're going to create a lot of effort to do things on Facebook, for example, or other social platforms. You really need to do an effort in time and resources, you know, and you need very good content. Content is still king in that matter. So there are a lot of people watching, joining, being inactive, just being there and hanging around. So you have to consider that. And what I also personally think is that you need to kind of have the right connections. So if the connections are your family and your friends, and you're in a different world professionally, I mean, that's not your audience. So you really should work on your connections. Like for me, Facebook is a professional tool, and I'm linked with all people from my professional network, and I'm using it as an information channel, more or less. And they too, and we exchange information to each other, and it's really kind of fun, because in the morning you check in, you have all the info, and you can spread it virally to your connections. I want to go over, because maybe you know this already, it's an old project, but I want to go over a few projects that I really liked, and of course we're not David Lynch, I know that, you know, so we maybe not have the money or get people to get the funding. But the David Lynch project was one of the first interactive kind of documentaries online, I think. It started in, I don't know, 2008 or something, or 2006, 2007. Who knows the project? Everybody? No, not too many people. So it's very short videos. It was in the beginning of video online, and video online is really the big thing now. I'm really a strong believer in video online. Very short interviews. It's kind of a road trip in the US, and these people who are interviewed are really they're mediocre, but they all have something very personal and something really cool to talk about. So if you don't know it, you should check it out, because it's really interesting. And it's a new approach on documentary. And of course, it's completely connected to all the social platforms that are there now. Another project, this is a company I met in San Francisco, and it's a social causes. They work for non-profit, and they make micro-documentaries. And the micro-documentaries are always very short video, because people, the concentration span is very short of people apparently online. And this is a project for the homeless people in Palo Alto. Most of you will think Palo Alto is a rich area, but there's the west and the east side. The east side is very poor, and a lot of homeless people, and they're trying to kind of reactivate these homeless people so they can get a new job and integrate in society again. And so what they do, I didn't want to go online because the online thing is not really working well, so you should check it out later on. What they do is they make kind of episodes, webisodes in fact, about a topic, very short, two minutes, video explaining about the topic and how they handled it. And then of course the website is completely glued to the social platforms that are there. Now Ben is the guy from the company, and he's working together with BG Fogg, which I will talk about later on, because it's based on a specific model, you know. It's based on a model to motivate, trigger, and give the ability to people to react on things. And so the idea of the video is you make the video, And then you can spread it around in email. Email is working very well. I was really surprised yesterday in the session of Kickstarter. Apparently people react a lot more on email than on Facebook or Twitter or whatsoever. It's glued to the social networks, of course, but what you also need is influencers. You need people who are really known who have an authority in a certain subject, who can do the viral work for you and be an ambassador for what you do. And that's very important also. And then you can create offline events connected to the topic, and then you go in like the traditional world, right? So that's all that together will give you the ability to gather a lot more people and to kind of react on your cause. So if you want to use Facebook, there are how many of you use Facebook for their professional environment? Oh, quite a lot. Yeah. So you all know about tagging, right? Because in another session they were like, tagging, what's that? So these are like 5 quick tips to kind of trigger people. So I'm talking about influencers. So if you tag people and you tag these influencers in there, you don't have to spam people, of course, you all know that. But if you tag people, the possibility that they will react on it will be much higher than if you don't tag people. And then make it very easy to participate, explain a little bit what you want to do. The target behavior is very important. So do you want people to comment on your things? Do you want people to like it? Very specifically in what you want to achieve in there. Of course, tell about what you want to do, the goal and everything, explain so that people know and be very transparent about this. It's really important, the transparency about what you want to do. And then also maybe put a deadline on the reaction time. You know, if you want to post something, you post your topic, you send it to influencers, and they have maybe 2 or 3 days time to react on it. So I think it's important for people that you put kind of a time limit on the things that you want to do. So yesterday, who was in the Kickstarter session yesterday? 2, 3 people. Yeah. So I really like Kickstarter, and I've been following it since 2008, since the early stage. The website changed a lot in time. I pledged one project, Mondo 2000. Mondo 2000 is a subculture in San Francisco about cyberspace. Was in the end of the 90s, early 2000s, and then they disappeared. And now it's 10 years later, and the guy who really started Mondo wants to do kind of a open source history project on Mondo 2000. So I pledged it and I followed it. I pledged in the very early stage. And as yesterday in the session also, it was really amazing in the last week of that funding area. They needed another 3,000 euros, I think, dollars. And it was amazing how fast that went in the last week, you know, and now they're like $11,000 to almost $12,000. And you get a lot of information about the project, and if you want to participate, you can, and it's like it's really a cool thing to do. So Kickstarter is really working, I think. It proved itself yesterday in the session. And it's kind of fun to be in that community, so if you really want to kind of work on a project on Kickstarter, it's very easy to do as well. Even I'm from Europe, and Kickstarter is a US-oriented platform. So it's completely community-driven. So all these examples are really completely community-driven. So that's also a very important message, I think. Kiva is another example, and Kickstarter is one thing to get money. Kiva is a different one. It's microloans. I don't know if you know. People know Kiva? Yeah. So it's microloans for development countries, and also there, the back end of Kiva works a little bit differently about the financing. It's not so simple as it's explained on their website. But the main thing is that you kind of crowdfund with microloans and you get paid back in a kind of long term, and the idea is that you reinvest your money in other projects. So all these things also are fiscally deductible, so that's also kind of a tax shelter idea behind it. So it's also community driven from all over the world. And so in this case, with the guy in Mongolia, There were like 80 lenders to get his money to do his atelier. The Johnny Cash project is kind of a different crowdsourcing project. Does anybody know this Johnny Cash project? I know we're not Johnny Cash either. But this is kind of a cool thing. It's Flash-based website. And it's one video clip that is done, and the frames of the video clip is built by artists. And you can contribute to have kind of a template where you can work on and you can draw on and everything, and then compile a video clip for that song. So that's the idea. I don't think there's a business model behind it here. It's just Johnny Cash who, a tribute to Johnny Cash, actually. Completely community-driven as well. This is another cool project I saw, and I know the guy. It's a Globalized Project. It's also very short videos. It's voluntary work, and I will show you the video so you can kind of see.
The Globalized Project is a collaboration of more than 500 volunteer filmmakers, artists, designers, translators, and everyday people from around the world. The Globalized Project set out to document 24 hours in the daily life of 10 people who roughly represent the diversity of humanity.
From the most intimate to the most mundane moments, our crews patiently watched, turning themselves over to the pace and rhythms of lives not their own.
Geography. 61% of the world's population lives in Asia, so we selected 6 Asians and 1 person each from the other 4 major world regions: North America, South America, Africa, and Europe.
We also learned that more than half of the world lives in cities, so we chose 5 urban and 5 rural people.
Income. We conducted detailed economic research to select 10 people whose earnings roughly represent global income distribution.
Gender. Half men, half women.
Religion. The actual religious distribution of the planet.
Age. The actual age distribution of the planet. 6 of the 10 people are under 30 years old.
Mas nem precisa viver, é só te ver, tu já senti na pele, a seta e o clima que rola que usam por então.
We've shown our work in museums, universities, classrooms, and public spaces around the world. Anyone is welcome to watch or download our footage or contribute to our growing video library of human life experience at globallives.org. Step out of your world and explore the boundaries of global lives with us.
So this project is initiated in San Francisco Institute of the Future, and it's completely funded by a foundation, the Adobe Foundation. And of course you have the spin-offs, the exhibitions, which are really cool, and DVD material and everything. And it's used in classes in the US to kind of create awareness that there are a lot of, the US sometimes is a bit single-oriented, and to tell younger people that there are a lot of cultures in the world, a lot of languages, and that we kind of need to preserve all that heritage, you know, and to kind of make people and younger people aware about this. So it's a very noble project. This one I don't know very well, but I found it interesting because it was a research project, and from the research they kind of made it public, and they built a community around it, and it has webisodes now. So before it was on just normal television and everything, and then they kind of transferred everything to online to create awareness about these species. It's also completely community-driven, that project, and a lot of people are commenting on it who are concerned about this subject. So how does this all happen? And this is a little bit in conjunction with what was Doug telling. There are different people working on models how to kind of trigger people. And the Dragonfly Effect is a project that is started also in Stanford. Two guys had cancer, and they wanted to kind of create awareness about the problem, about the donor problem. You know, people don't if you need a donor or something, people are not really anxious to do that. So to kind of create awareness about that, they started to create events, video online, communities, Facebook, Twitter, used everything that there was to kind of create that awareness. And there came out the Dragonfly Effect model, and it's actually based on just like what I told you before. It's like focusing on your topic, be very clear on your topic, what you want to achieve, and then kind of grab the attention of the people and give them the ability to take action. So that's very important, I think, because if they don't have the ability to take action, they won't do it, right? And it needs to be very simple, very friendly, everything. Together with B.G. Fogg's model is these two, if you apply, and we already did in Belgium, if you apply these two models, you're most likely going to be successful. But you really have to think about it. It's a lot about design, usability, and psychology, and how to reach people. And this model is just motivating people. So for example, if you want to get people to kind of flush their teeth, and you know they're like daily doing already brushing their teeth, right? So the action to do that extra thing will be much easier if they don't brush their teeth, right? So if you have to kind of implement it in a daily routine of people. So if you know your audience very well, and you know how they react and on a certain topic, you can integrate new items in someone's life. You cannot change people's life in like one day, right? So this motivation, the trigger, and the ability needs to happen at the same time. That's very important, not like a day later. You know. And we're talking about cold triggers and hot triggers. And hot triggers are, of course, the triggers that you can kind of react immediately. For example, I will give an example of a cold trigger. You're in your car, you hear a commercial about UNICEF, and you can donate money. But you're in your car, and you cannot do it immediately. By the time you get home, you forgot about it. A hot trigger would be like you're in your chair in front of your computer, you hear the same commercial, you go online on the UNICEF site, and you can donate immediately, and it's more likely you will do it, right? Because you have the ability to do it immediately. And you're like impulse, it's an impulse reaction. Of course, for the ability, there are different windows. You have to those things that you all have to think about, and there are different windows for people to reach. And some windows, people are more open for things that, like in the morning, everybody's a little bit stressed to go to work, for example. You're not going to reach people, right? So they're not really worried about that. But if you do it in the evening and they're relaxed, they might react much faster on your questions. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of research. It's 15-year research on how technology can change people. So I'm just going quickly through it, but there's a lot more to it, of course. So if you want to have your website, I think Instagram is, people are using Instagram on iPhone here? Do they know? Yeah. So I think that's really a cool application also to kind of engage people while you're a little bit disactive, right? So if you are at places where you want to make a making of, I mean, Instagram application is very viral and it's very easy to use. I know it's on iPhone and not everybody has an iPhone, but the thing is here, I think that the trigger here is you take the picture, you can then do a filtering and then you post it everywhere. You post it on Foursquare, Twitter, Facebook, email it to someone, and it's very instant. While the other camera applications that are on your phone are much more difficult to use. You know, but first you have to look for a lens and then all that, and then that moment is completely gone. So Instagram is really like in the moment and post it immediately if there's Wi-Fi everywhere, that would be nice. And it's a free application as well. So anyway, so you can have these nice, cool Polaroids to engage your audience and to kind of, you can print them also. It's not only online, it's also offline. So the future, I think, maybe not so important for you, but I like to follow this, is I think for the platforms who will be able to integrate hot triggers in the platform. And it's just something that I would like to open it up. Apple is a very closed platform, right? So we love the iPhone and the iPad, of course, but you have to think about the closeness, and then Yakit is probably going to face that as well. Facebook is a walled garden, so for me, Facebook now is a Microsoft. You know, it's I think it's. I mean, you can do everything, but it's like it's completely closed environment as well. And I'm very curious to Google in the next 5 years what they're going to do. So I want to leave you with one video.
Now, if you're playing the movie on a telephone, you will never in a trillion years experience the film. You'll think you have experienced it, but you'll be cheated. It's such a sadness that you think you've seen a film on your fucking telephone. Get real.
Thank you.
Next up, we've got Lucy Cook, who's going to take us on a quick tour of her experience of going viral.
Yeah. So first of all, apologies to anybody who saw me speak on Wednesday. I'm really sorry you're going to hear the same thing again. I'll try and make it slightly different. Certainly my voice sounds different to how it did. It's a testament to how brilliant this Sheffield has been for me. Anyway, so I'm going to tell you a story about how engaging with new media and social media helped me optimise my ideas across lots of different platforms, both old and new. So my story starts at Sheffield here 3 years ago, and it's the opening night party, and I'm chasing the BBC commissioning editor around the room, desperately trying to persuade them to commission a documentary about amphibians. I should wait for my thingy to come up. Anyway, so I'm chasing him around the room, and it's not working at all. He's not interested in me, even though at the time I was a successful producer-director. I directed a lot of big primetime series, and they weren't having any of it, and that was quite frustrating for me. You don't know how to use Keynote. Well, I'm certainly not an expert. So. Oh no, that it does dominate the whole screen. That's just what you see that notes shouldn't show. So we just need to see it there. Oh, okay. Good. Does anybody here know how to use Keynote? Yeah. Click play. Yes, of course. studied zoology. And what I really, really, really want to do is stop telling other people's stories and start telling my own stories using my own voice. So, you know, this documentary that I wanted to make about frogs was just one of many films that I wanted to make about animals that were funny, basically. Okay, right. Could everybody hear before, didn't you? Okay. So, the time commissioning was going through a very tricky phase, and fear of risk was running high, and there was I realised there was just no way I was going to persuade a commissioning editor to commission one of my funny ideas. So I thought, well, sod it. I'm not going to be a victim of the system. I'm going to. I know there's an audience out there because every time I tell my stories at dinner parties or whatever, everybody loves to hear them, and so I'm going to go off and I'm going to live the documentary that I want to make. So I decided to sod off around South America for 6 months looking for frogs. And I called myself the Amphibian Avenger because everybody deserves to be a superhero at some stage during their life. And I wrote a blog about it. So instead of making a film, I decided to write a blog. I should actually mention that one of the factors that inspired me to take this approach is I went on the crossover labs, which I highly recommend it was a bit of a brutal awakening going on crossover actually, because it was a bit like arriving on Beetlejuice without a Babel fish, and everybody was talking this weird about new media, and I didn't really understand what they were talking about, and they talked about stories in this weird nebulous non-linear way, but it was very, very good, and I highly recommend you all, if you're interested in this thing, try and get on a crossover lab because it changed my life. Okay, so I went on this gonzo journey, and I went licking poison dart frogs in Bogota and visiting fungus-infested frog farms in Uruguay and all sorts of brilliant things that was just fantastic. And as well as writing my blog, I also posted videos on a Vimeo site. I chose Vimeo over YouTube. That was a completely random choice, but it turned out actually to be a very good choice. Vimeo's very good for going internal network for promoting going viral. And I love the freedom to be creative, and I really love doing this. But I realised that there's sort of no point doing something brilliant that you're really proud of if it's only read by your mum and your best mates, although that is nice. But I sort of started to feel very proud of this, and I wanted lots of people. And I felt all sort of embarrassed about it at first, and I was just like, I don't want to start a Facebook page for the Amphibian Avenger, that's like embarrassing, I don't want to do that. Anyway, but I did, and it was a really smart move, and I did Twitter and did all those things, and started to develop a big audience for my adventures, and I realised that there are actually a lot of people out there who want to follow a mad woman go around South America looking for frogs. So it was one big digital learning curve, but what I learned most of all out of the whole thing is that people love baby sloths. They're basically cute crack, and they could sell ice to Eskimos, basically. They are. So at the very end of my journey, the last video that I posted on Vimeo was about some very itchy, sleepy baby sloths, and I'll show you it now. You'd have to have a heart of stone, wouldn't you? That's love it. Look, they cuddle soft toys. They're so sleepy.
Ajá, porque digamos que, a ver, siénteme que esté.
They've got terrible, terrible table manners. You wouldn't want to have them to dinner. Look at that.
There's something on with them?
And they're very itchy. I felt like that a lot during this Sheffield actually. They love beans.
Okay.
The rage in his eyes. Oh, and they fall asleep in their dinner. See, I think there's a bit of the sloth in all of us, you know. Look, he was falling asleep. I have a little nibble a bit later, you know. Oh, big yawn. Okay, one thing I know is that animals turning to camera on the internet is like viral gold, basically. People love it. Dramatic, what was it? The dramatic chipmunk, wasn't it? And there was like a whole load. So yeah, I knew that shot was going to be a winner. So basically, I sort of cheated because I knew that they had viral potential. Because that's a sloth sanctuary in Costa Rica that I visited at the end of my trip, and I'd actually seen a video online that had gone viral of this really itchy baby sloth that I thought was hilarious. These two guys had gone to the sanctuary and filmed it, and they were actually incapacitated by their own laughter as they're like shaking the cameras on watching this thing scratch itself. And I thought, oh, that looks brilliant, I'm going to go there because I think I can make something really funny. So I sort of knew that they had a viral potential, but I had absolutely no idea quite how nuts it was going to go. I posted that video on my Facebook page and on Twitter. That was all I did start off with, and said, "Hey everybody, I've just posted my latest video. You might like it." And it took 12 days to have 1 million hits, basically. And at its peak, it was getting 10,000 hits an hour and being tweeted like several times every minute. Actually, I can show you the stats. One of the things I love about Vimeo is that the stats, right? So if the baby sloth's a cute crack, then I became totally addicted to the stats because it's just like, you know, they have these ones that sort of, this is like a graph of the first 12 days, and you can see like the first day it got 310 hits, then 2,500, then 21,000, then 51,000, you know, like it just went woof, which was a kind of crazy experience actually. And the sort of things that sort of helped that were, you know, Facebook like is just incredible, you know, as you know how things spread around on that, and how useful Twitter is. And really that was all I did to start off with. I knew that there was a couple of people that tweeted it that are like these sort of early adopter types. They're friends of mine, that, you know, comedy writers who are followed by lots of people who kind of hang on their every word. So when they pumped it out, definitely my mate Kevin Cecil, who's a very good writer, that gave it a sort of a boost. And then I also got another boost because I used to work for Jonathan Ross years ago, and so I sent Jonathan a message one morning and saying, hey, you know, do you want to tweet about my baby sloths? And he did, and then it just went nuts for a moment. And then another friend of mine knows Stephen Fry, and she sent it, and it went nuts after he did it. So I was sort of using what I could, but it had already gone. You know, it was already like wildfire. And then what happens is that it gets picked up by international press, so like CNN, Entertainment Weekly first, and then CNN, the Huffington Post, major newspapers all around the world all featured the baby sloths. Like, so it was just absolutely nuts. And what I did was I then drove that traffic from the sloths back onto my blog. Yeah, okay, so sorry about this. Yeah, and then, that's what I'm going to do next is so here we go, here's some of the press that I got. They were really famous for a while back there. Yeah, and then the other thing that I realised is that, yeah, people love to chat, and your audience, as a filmmaker, it's really interesting. Normally we make something for television, there's like this faceless audience, you get a viewing figure, you put 3 million people watch, who don't know who they are, you might get a review, that's it. You know, what was amazing for me was that doing stuff online is you're so in touch, your audience like gives you all this feedback, it's amazing. So these are like some of the comments that people left on my Vimeo site. I particularly like the guy who said, I feel like my ovaries exploded and I'm a man. You know, he's great. And then it's just like, I became slightly fascinated with it. This is on survivinginfidelity.com. And somebody's having a little chat about my video on there. And somebody's like, oh, look, there's the Vimeo, there's the where it is. And they're like, my heart just went melty. And then somebody, a concerned fellow, you know, person who's surviving infidelity is like, yeah, too cute, but did you see those claws? You know, you can't trust a book by its cover. Anyway, so that's all really interesting, the whole relationship you have with your audience. And obviously they don't just want to chat about it, and you've got to respond and cultivate that. but also they want to kind of own it in some way. So Buttercup, who's the sloth at the end, and the Jedi sloth in the basket that looks to camera, that sort of became an internet meme in its own right, and there were all these animated GIFs being passed around on Tumblr, and she even got a Facebook page, somebody dedicated to the chilling sloth that's got more friends than I have. So, which was kind of amazing, but brilliant, you know, like a really cool thing. So all in all, I got more attention for a 90-second video that I'd taken 2 days' work to make than an entire 10 years at the coalface of television. So it was kind of amazing, really. So what did I do with all of this attention? Well, first of all, I signed the Sanctuary up to an exclusive, to media exclusive to me before anybody else could get to them. Which they were very happy to do because they were very, very happy. They got masses of donations and volunteers and everything off the back of that video. So, you know, they were very happy, and so that was that. And then I got a book deal because Simon & Schuster got in touch with me that they'd seen the video and then they'd read my blog, so they gave me they said, do you want to write a book about sloths? And I went, yeah. And then I got Discovery gave me a commission to make a 1 hour about the sloth sanctuary, so that was great. So. Yep. Oh yes. Oh, here we go. So I've started up a new blog, obviously, to grow an audience around those projects, and I am now slothville.com, which has also got Facebook and Twitter, sorry about this. It was a late night last night. I do apologise. So yeah, what about the frogs? Well, the frogs Channel 4 Brit Foundation gave me seed funding to make a feature documentary about the frogs, which is brilliant. And then finally, which is the most bizarre thing, the amount of tension that all of this generated is that National Geographic read my blog, got in touch with me, and have just given me my own TV series. So, the moral of this story is, for all of you people who've had a shitty week of being cold-shouldered by commissioning editors, sod them. It doesn't matter. If you've got a good idea and you're passionate about it, just go out and do it, and something good will happen. Because there's an audience out there. If you've got conviction and passion and you believe in it, you'll find your audience. Sorry for being so hungover.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lucy. You're a beacon of hope for emerging filmmakers. So next up, we've got Pete Fine, who's going to give us a very quick-fire presentation for 5 minutes about community. For which once you're set up, we'd like to lower the lights. Yeah.
Do we have sound on here? We do. Yeah, we're talking about video. Yeah, give me a sec here. Thank you. Okay. All right. How my neighbors saved my ass in a flood. Hi, my name's Peter Fine, and I'm from Chicago. Last fall, my wife and I had the opportunity to trade bright city lights for big, open, blue skies. So we packed up the truck and drove, and eventually arrived at our new home in rural Washington State. It has a big yard and these really cool cliffs with some spectacular views, and horses. After we hiked up the cliffs a few times and fed the horses, winter came and went, and we found ourselves lonely and bored. But 3 weeks ago, we persuaded friends from Seattle to visit us and spent a great evening eating and drinking and playing board games while a storm raged outside. I awoke in the morning to find a fallen tree, the yard full of water, and the only road to our house completely washed out. Over the course of the day, the waters continued to rise, so with the help of my neighbor, we built a flood wall out of paving stones. But the water kept coming up, completely submerging this 6-foot-high fence, leaving us stranded without power or drinkable water. Amazingly, our landline phone continued to work, so we were able to act as a source of information for the dozen families who lived in the canyon. It's hard to convey the primordial terror instilled by something like this, or to describe the dark beauty of listening to the rush of the waters by candlelight with an alarm set for midnight to see if the defenses held. After 3 days with no power or water, we decided it was time to leave. Our neighbor drove us, our house guests, and his family an hour through dirtback roads to reach a point that was normally 5 minutes away. We eventually made our way to town and showers, staying with my wife's coworker. Thankfully, everyone was okay and the house didn't flood, but the damage was severe. 3 inches of rain in 24 hours on top of 31 inches of snowpack caused the creek to rise. It dammed this bridge and burst through the bank, sending the water down the road. The flood carried with it a huge volume of river rock. It completely filled the front pasture to a height of over 5 feet. It's hard to capture just how large some of these rocks were. We're talking really big fucking rocks. The waters carved a new stream bed along the road, a gash 5 feet deep and 10 feet wide. The county sent some heavy equipment to begin the mammoth task of rebuilding the road. While not beautiful, that road is at least kind of drivable. The county's efforts let us return, but half a dozen families remained cut off from their homes. I'm just a young urban outsider in this rural community. I was impressed with how my neighbors, some in their 60s and 70s, shouldered the burden of rebuilding. One neighbor built a footbridge to enable those upstream to return home. Another contacted the post office about replacing mailboxes. A third volunteered a field to be used as parking, while others filled in for emergency services. The Church of Latter-day Saints abandoned their Sunday worship, sending 300 people from 3 counties to help fill 23,000 sandbags. This is a form of self-organization called duocracy, a system in which the people who get things done get things done. No one ordered the construction of that footbridge. Someone saw a need, a place where he could help, and so he just did. The internet is a powerful tool for forging collaborations at home and across the globe, but it cannot replace all of our social networks. And similarly, governments cannot always solve our problems for us. We would do well to remember that when disaster strikes and destroys your DSL line in the process, it is our neighbors who will help. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Next up we have a spokesperson from UK Uncut. How many people here are not from the UK? Quite a lot. So you need to do a little bit of an explanation as to what it is. So she's going to tell us how UK Uncut went from a talk in a pub to a national movement in the space of about 3 months or so.
Yeah, I'm going to be... Hi everyone. This is slightly interactive, slightly winged, so I'm just going to explain that in advance. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. So I'm Danny, I'm a spokesperson from UK Uncut, and we're here talking about obviously how our idea in a pub became a huge anti-government cuts protest movement. So who are UK Uncut? We're now an international, grassroots, decentralised protest movement fighting the government public sector cuts. We took particular beef with the two lines that were constantly being thrown at us. We're all in this together, and there are no alternatives. We just thought, that's not true, that's hollow rhetoric, something needs to be done to address these issues, and the fact that, the cuts that are happening, they're totally ideologically motivated, and that argument needs to be put forward, and it needs to be put forward strongly. Austerity economics are the policies of the powerful. Asking nicely isn't always going to work. Sorry for that really cheesy... I hadn't really thought about that. Creative civil disobedience, that's what we had to do. We started off big society revenue and customs. We're looking at big corporate tax avoiders. These huge companies that are being let off enormous sums of money by the government, money that should be used to fund our public services. So, as big society revenue and customs, we've got four main targets. Start off with Vodafone, and we're looking at £6 billion they've been let off. We've got Sir Philip Green, 300 million. Boots, 100 million. Tesco, another 100 million. Not even to mention the products that it's talking about. So we've got huge injustice here. And what we're doing, creative civil disobedience, we're going into these places. People gluing themselves to the inside of Topshop, tax dodgers. People setting up libraries inside Vodafone stores, saying our public money should be used to fund the libraries that we're going to lose. We had sports days in Topshop. The money that Philip Green was dodging was enough to cover all of the proposed cuts to school sports in the entire country, just to give it some context. We went into Boots and set up an NHS. That 100 million could pay for the salary of 400 nurses for a whole year. We're talking big amounts. So we started off big society revenue and customs against tax dodgers. Then we turned to the big society bail-in. So we're also looking at the banks. We're looking at the fact the financial sector caused this massive economic crisis, which the public is now paying for through public sector cuts, and that's not fair. So we've gone into banks. HSBC turned into a creche to highlight the fact that Sure Start centres are being cut. We turned Barclays into a library. We had comedy gigs by some pretty good comedians. There's Josie Long in that photo. To highlight the cuts to the arts. So that's what we're about. We're creative disobedience. We're going in, doing creative performances to highlight our point. And it's been really effective. This started in October 2010, so 6 months later. We've got 30,000 Facebook followers, 30,000 Twitter followers, over 600 actions in the UK in less than 6 months. Huge media coverage. If anyone reads The Guardian, you might have heard of us. And it sparked kind of international movements. So we've got US Uncut, France, Spain, Portugal, Sudan, to name but a few. That very specific figure of lost sales and brand damage from the stores that have been shut, and the damage that have been done to the brand, including kind of hacking Vodafone's website, that kind of thing. And we've had some big political successes, including National Audit Office deciding to investigate how HMRC is reaching some of these deals. So there have been big political successes. Okay, how we got there. So I'm going to start with how it started, and then why it worked. Okay, I'm going to keep this quick. Okay. Started with one man, And that's, that's a very low shot to use such a bad photo. And I know that I'd be really angry with someone doing that to me, but there we go. It's high caliber opposition here. Started with George Osborne and his comprehensive spending review. Most kind of brutal public sector spending cuts since the 1920s, going to be affecting the poorest and most vulnerable in this society the hardest. So that came out, we were pretty pissed off. We went on a march. So then first the spending review, then these three things happened. We went on a march. It wasn't listened to, it didn't get covered. We felt really frustrated. We realised democracy was going to, involved a lot more than just waiting 4 years to put another tick in another box. We needed to get out on the streets and do something about this. So we were spurred into action by, the disempowerment of this march and where it was getting us. We then saw a copy of The Private Eye, and in The Private Eye was an article about Vodafone's tax record. And it was an expose saying, it appears that in this dealing with HMRC, Vodafone has been let off £6 billion. And then we went to the pub as a group of friends, and people were looking at this saying, hang on, we're cutting £7 billion to, that's the proposed spending cuts to the public state, to our welfare state, and Vodafone have just been allowed off 6. That's not fair. There's a massive injustice there, and people need to know about this. So we decided to do an action on it. Action 1, a week after the spending review was announced, we had 70 people occupy Vodafone's flagship store on Oxford Street. So 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, it was half term, so all the teachers could come, which was good. So what we'd had this conversation in a pub. We put a call out on the web. That's our kind of first basic kind of website structure. It's just a call out, and we got a few, a few people that we knew to kind of tweet it out with big following. And the night before, we came up with the hashtag UKUncut. Just emergency. What we're going to call ourselves. That's our hashtag, and that's what happened. Vague call out, come to the Ritz, find the yellow umbrella, follow the yellow umbrella, everyone went into Vodafone, and that's how it started. What we got out of that, by the end of the action, we had 1,200 followers. UKUncut was trending in the UK. Second, Justin Bieber was just ahead of us, well, never mind. It encouraged a spontaneous action. By the time we'd finished that action, there was already someone else around the country, we learned on Twitter, being like, yeah, I'm in Vodafone, I'm lying down, I'm with you guys. Even before, our action had finished. And UKUncut is born. Going national, by that Saturday, we'd set up a slightly more sophisticated website. You sent your actions in saying, this is what I'm going to do, put it on the website, and other people will come. That Saturday, we had 30 shops closed all around the country. That's just 3 days later. That was an amazing mobilisation. And then since then, we've had constant we've called big national days of actions, and those are the big spikes that you can see. We had Pay Day. We had, 31st of Jan was a big one when, everyone else is getting their tax returns in. What about these big corporations? We then did a few around banks bonuses, and obviously March the 26th, the big TUC march. And then recently, the recent spike is looking at the feeding into the NHS consultation. Okay, so why it worked? Why has this campaign gone so well and been sustained over this 6 months? And it's kind of about interaction, and that's a really important message we want to get across. I mean, if you've been on our website, you'll know all of the stuff I've just told you already, and that's the point. It's really interactive. So, what we're going to do now is where's it gone? Where did it go? Sorry, I hate apples.
You haven't been converted yet, that's why. We're
Looking for the link.
Oh, yes.
It was on there. Ah, great.
It's my social account.
Okay, so this is the action section on the UK MCAT website. You list your actions, and as you can see, there were a lot on the 28th of May. And the whole point of this, UK MCAT is a decentralised network. You do it yourself. So this is the website, you upload your own action, okay? So, we're in Sheffield.
Do you mind taking the microphone again? Thanks.
We're in Sheffield. Currently, we're in the town hall. Time to meet. Now, action details. Ooh.
This is the moment where I have to step in and say, this wasn't part of the original plan. I'm actually a board member of DocFest, and if you end up becoming a part of this action, I just would like you to say this is it's part of your own individual conscience. It's not officially endorsed by DocFest, and I would request that you please remove your badge so that it doesn't challenge the future funding of DocFest. So please be sensitive to this. And as I say, that's it. You're on your own, and no obligation to take part.
Yeah, cool. So that's the call-out. The rest of this talk, I'm going to get as many of you up on your feet. We're going to go to Vodafone. It's 2 minutes away. We're going to run there out the rain. We're going to sit in there.
Question: did you manage to get some money back from Vodafone, or you just get people waiting for it? Did you manage to make Vodafone?
We can continue. We're going to do questions and answers and finish the talk in Vodafone itself. Yeah?